Greetings, I'm Tom Bankston, publisher of BankBeat.biz and BankBeat Magazine. This is another BankBeat Quick Takes video blog, and my guest today is Chris Lee. Chris Lee is another rising star in banking, honored in the July issue of BankBeat Magazine. Chris is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Gate City Bank in Fargo, North Dakota. How are you, Chris?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to visit with us. Chris, you have extensive experience with an accounting firm. Early in your career, that's where your work was. How has that, would you call that a good platform for becoming a banker, and how has that prepared you for banking?
Yeah, I would call that as a great platform. You know, there's a lot of benefits from being in the public accounting industry and specifically working with the banks in that industry. You get a lot of experience to see a lot of different banks, a lot of different things very quickly. So I've seen banks from, you know, North Dakota to Arizona to Kansas, all across the Western U.S. And so it really allowed me to see how different banks work, how different banks run, what their thought processes were. And I got to see a lot of different things in the process. And the other thing that's really nice about it is you get to meet a lot of different people. So I still have a lot of great contacts that I met from my time in public accounting and a lot of great bankers that I met in the industry that I can reach out to and ask questions to, and those relationships are really helpful when you get into the practice.
I see. As a CFO, the CFO is kind of an emerging officer position within the bank. The last 10 years, it seems like CFO has become a more prominent, more important position in the bank, and taken almost, you know, center stage more than it ever has. And I'm curious, what do you think it takes to be a good CEO, and what are some of your observations about that particular and unique role in the bank?
Yeah, I think you just have to be willing to learn, willing to be very nimble in your thought process, how you think about things, how you work through things, you know, especially in today's environment. Technology is changing very fast. The banking industry continues to have new regulations and new changes. And so you really have to be knowledgeable about a lot of different things to understand how they're going to affect the bank in the short term and the long term, and then be able to explain that to other members of your executive team, be able to articulate what that might do to the financials, and then be able to be thoughtful about that as you plan ahead in your, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 5-year strategies as you think about that. And so you really have to kind of wear a lot of different hats and really have a broad understanding of a lot of areas, from a little bit of credit to risk to of course, the financials and the interest rate risk and all of those typical things. But it's really starting to expand as banks get into more technology and more new areas and how that interacts with the finance function.
And I bet that's well, the strategic planning part of it, I'm sure, is extremely important. Banks have gotten so good in the last decade or so of implementing strategic plans. And I can see where the CFO might end up being the point person on something like that.
Yeah, generally they oversee a lot of areas that the strategic plan surely interacts with, and so they can provide a good perspective on what the pros and cons of each decision may be. You know, our group tends to do a lot of modeling for the other groups to say, well, what if we do this, or what if we do that? How is that going to look? And so we have to understand all the different aspects that it may affect so we can appropriately put those into models and build those out for everybody to have a good understanding of what this may do and what the impact might be to the bank, not only today or tomorrow, but 3 to 4 to 5 years out, because sometimes those decisions do have a long-term impact or a very large investment. So it's really important to have a thorough understanding before you do make those decisions.
As you reflect back on your career, can you share a little bit about how you have made the various decisions you have made when you've reached a sort of a crossroads? Are there guiding principles that you live by, or maybe there's a mentor in your life who's been very influential for you, or some other influence? Maybe it's a goal that you're pursuing. What can you share about that?
Yeah, so I think as I've kind of looked at my career and I've always had goals that I've wanted to reach. So I've tried to think ahead, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years to say, okay, what are the things I need to do today to get to that next step in my career, to get to that next goal in my career. I think, as you mentioned, it is really important to have mentors to help show you the way, help you understand, to help you learn, because there's a lot of academic things, but there's a lot of other areas to grow in your career that you really just need somebody that's had experience, that they tried things that did or didn't work, and they can give you feedback and perspective. I had a really good partner when I was at Eide Bailly who kind of helped me work through, the process and how to grow and how to move up in the firm. And that's kind of how I got into banking. I worked well with him. The industry was very interesting to me. I saw opportunity for growth in that area. And so you have to really be proactive in your managing your own career. Somebody's not going to do that for you. And so you really need to think about what you want to do and how you want to get there. To be honest too, there are things where if you work hard and do the right thing, you'll be positioned when the opportunity presents itself. So there are, time, as they say, timing is everything. And so there's certain things that you're in the right place at the right time. And, it's through hard work and through doing the things you need to do before that you're prepared to take advantage of an opportunity when it presents itself. And you know what you're looking for, and so you're aware of those opportunities when they present themselves. And so I think those are all things that as somebody starts a career, just knowing what you like, what makes sense, and where opportunities might be, preparing for those and being ready when it presents itself.
Let's shift gears a little bit here. Let me ask you to comment on the market environment in Fargo, North Dakota. Gate City Bank is in Fargo, and Fargo has been a really kind of a booming metro area in the upper Midwest. But of course, we're in a very unique time, the onset of the pandemic. We're in a recession. But what do you see? What are you hearing from Gate City's customers? Are you generally optimistic about the next 6 months, or are you quite concerned that things might be tightening up? Or how would you characterize the environment?
Yeah, so I would say the feedback and the information that we have and how we're thinking about that is that we're cautiously optimistic. I think people are optimistic that it'll change, but they're being very cautious and conservative. We're generally Midwestern people, and they continue to, usually are a little more cautious and about those kind of things. So we're not seeing really drastic changes in our economy. We've had a lot of people that have figured out how to overcome working in this environment, working remotely. We have a lot of great technology companies in Fargo. Microsoft has a very large campus here. WEX has a large campus here. And so a lot of those employers were able to disperse people to their homes and work out of their homes. And we were able to do that as well. We have a large healthcare systems in town that, of course, employ a lot of people, and they're getting back to kind of a new normal. And so I think the diversity in our employment really helps us in the Fargo-Moorhead area. The other thing too, I think the timing of the year helps us. So as COVID hit on the tail end of that, we're getting into construction season, farm season, and so now you're having a whole bunch of seasonal jobs that wouldn't have existed, say, in January or February. So I think they can social distance through those, and they're outside and they're not in confined spaces. And so I think all of those things really help. Of course, the PPP program helped, and so now we're seeing how businesses are going to handle it as they work through those funds. So I think overall we're optimistic, especially in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Of course, we cover all the way out to western North Dakota, and so I think western North Dakota will have challenges of their own, being influenced by the oil industry and stuff like that. That's going to be probably more of a challenge than on the eastern part of the state, where we have a little more diversity. But the oil industry is used to the rising and the falling, and they plan for that. And so I think that will be helpful. But yeah, we're optimistic, and I think our borrowers are as well.
That's good to hear. I appreciate that. The pandemic has really forced all kinds of businesses to work a little bit differently. Many meetings are now done remotely, just like we're doing this interview. I'm wondering, what are some of the business practices that have either changed for you personally or more generally at Gate City Bank that you think may become part of the permanent landscape even after the pandemic clears up? Are there some practices that businesses have adopted that you think, oh, these are pretty good shifts and we'll probably stick with these?
Yeah, so our plan is really to figure out how do we utilize these remote work environments to allow people to have better work-life balances, to recruit talent that may not be in the Fargo Moorhead area or in our footprint that would be valuable to the bank, to say, we can have people from other states be able to provide the skill set that we need. And I think there's a number of people that will look at it as a benefit, that they can work from home and maybe in the office. And so we're working really hard to figure out how do we maintain our great culture as a bank, and how do we keep team members involved and interactive, but still allow them to have the flexibility to work from home and do some of those remote working things that we've gotten more accustomed to. And this has really forced us to be comfortable with that. And so, we were able to mobilize our team out of our corporate office into their homes, provide monitors. We were already set up with all the technology and all those things. So relatively quickly, we were able to get people up and running and didn't miss a beat. And so that's really a testament to our IT staff and to our pandemic planning group and to all of our team members that were just open to the idea and did what it took to get the job done. And so I think we'll utilize those things as we move forward to say, hey, we can be more efficient. How do we use these things to the tools that we've gained through this time to improve our business and make us more efficient?
In the Rising Star story that appears in the July issue of Bank Beat magazine, it is mentioned that you had a pretty severe health scare in your life, and that kind of forced you to reevaluate some things. And certainly an experience like that is not, it's dramatic, but this does happen in people's lives. Any thoughts that you might share with anybody about how you navigated your way through it and maybe what you learned?
Yeah, I think, the importance is really just, controlling the things you can control. You can't necessarily always control what happens to you or how it happens, but you can control how you think about it, how you react to it, having a positive attitude about those things, and then just keeping things into perspective. And it's like anything. When you face a large challenge in your life, you just have to break it down into bite-sized pieces and work through develop a plan and then work through each of those pieces and just keep working your way through it and not worry about the big huge mountain that you have to climb, but just take it one step at a time. And if you approach it like that, it's not overwhelming. It's a doable task for sure. And so it just really kind of gives you a different perspective on things in life that maybe matter some, maybe matter less than you thought, and really the importance of, our bank has a really good culture about work-life balance and all of those things, and it really makes you appreciate, employers that do that for their team members. And so that's really important to just kind of put that into perspective.
Chris, thank you for sharing those thoughts. I appreciate that. We're going to bring this to a close. I want to thank everybody for being with us. This has been a Bank Beat Quick Takes video blog. My guest has been Chris Lee, who is the Executive Vice President and CFO at Gate City Bank in Fargo, North Dakota. Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you down the line.
Thank you very much.